Ever scroll through your feed and end up like, oh, why do I even bother?
Yeah, I know that feeling.
Today, we're going to really get into it.
Yeah,
Social media and mental health, the whole deal.
big topic.
We're using this article from helpguide.org. Social media and mental health. Are you addicted to social media?
Sounds about right.
We'll break down the not so good stuff, like how to spot if you're maybe a little too into it. And most importantly, what can you actually do about it?
Love that. Actionable steps.
Right. Make it work for you, not the other way around.
Totally.
The big question is, can something meant to connect us actually be making us, more lonely?
It's a real head scratcher, isn't it? I mean, we jump on these platforms, but do we ever really stop and think about what they're doing to us?
Yeah, good point.
The article does start off by giving social media props for some things,
Okay, like what?
like connecting with people you actually care about, finding groups you have stuff in common with,
Right, finding your people.
even stuff like online therapy, which can be a lifeline for some folks.
That's true. So it's not all bad.
No, not at all. But where it gets interesting, or maybe concerning, is when we start talking about, too much of a good thing.
Excessive use, as they say.
Exactly. The article really digs into how that can mess with our mental well-being.
So, where does that even start? What's the mechanism there?
Well, think about it, those buttons, the notifications, the whole shebang.
Oh, yeah, the dopamine hits.
You got it.
Yeah.
They're designed to trigger that feel-good chemical in our brains. Problem is, it's the same reward pathway that gets activated by things like, gambling,
Oh,
addictive substances, that whole deal.
not good.
We get a taste of that little rush, and then we're like, more, please.
So it's not just a matter of willpower. It's like our brains are working against us.
You nailed it. And that brings us to FOMO, the fear of missing out.
Oh, FOMO, the classic.
Social media is basically a highlight reel of everyone else's supposedly perfect life.
It's the worst.
And you're constantly comparing yourself 24/7.
And then the article says that can lead to even riskier behavior.
Right. Trying to keep up with those perfect online personas.
Like doing things you wouldn't normally do just for the gram.
Exactly. There's actually a study that found that just cutting back to 30 minutes of social media a day led to, way better mental health.
Wow, seriously?
Yeah, no, I get it. 30 minutes might not be realistic for everyone, but it shows you the power of even small changes. The
Yeah.
point is, social media often shows this, fake perfect picture.
And that can really mess with your self-esteem.
No kidding.
So we're getting addicted to those little dopamine rushes, feeling pressured to live up to impossible standards. It's no wonder social media is linked to mental health issues. But isn't it kind of ironic that something meant to connect us could actually be making us feel more alone?
That's what the article calls the isolation paradox.
Isolation paradox. Love that.
Studies have actually shown a link between heavy social media use and, more loneliness and depression.
That's depressing.
Yeah, we might feel connected in that online world,
Yeah.
but we're missing out on the good stuff, the face-to-face.
Real human connection.
That's what truly makes us feel good.
Okay, so how do we know if our social media use is, crossing a line? What are the warning signs?
The article lays out a pretty helpful checklist. First off, are you ditching real-life plans to scroll?
Oh, that's me. Guilty as charged.
Happens to the best of us. Another one, do you always feel kind of anxious or down after using social media?
It's like a social media hangover.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And do you find yourself, always comparing yourself to others and not in a good way?
Yeah, the comparison game is brutal.
Tell me about it.
Mm.
And lastly, are you doing things that are actually risky just for those likes or for attention?
So it's not just how much time we spend online, but what it's doing to us in real life.
You got it.
But if we're seeing these red flags, is the answer just to completely log off?
Well, that might not be necessary for everyone. There were ways to find a balance.
Right, take control.
Exactly.
Okay, but how do you actually do that? What are some practical things we can try?
Well, the article suggests starting with what they call mindful motivation.
Mindful motivation. I like it.
Before you even open the app, take a second and ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Okay, so check your intentions at the door.
Exactly. Are you looking for real connection information, or are you just avoiding something else?
So be intentional instead of just mindlessly scrolling.
Right. And once you're more aware of your motives, you can start setting some boundaries.
Boundaries important.
The article suggests tech breaks, times when you completely unplug.
Like no phones at the dinner table or an hour before bed. I've heard that blue light from screens can really mess up your sleep.
Exactly. You create these no-phone zones, and it's amazing how much mental space opens up.
That makes sense.
Another one is notification control.
Those pesky notifications.
Turn off those constant pings and buzzes. You'll be less tempted to check your phone all the time.
It's like taking back control of your own attention.
You got it. And lastly, the article talks about cultivating offline joy.
Okay, tell me more about that.
It's about rediscovering those simple things you enjoy that have nothing to do with the digital world.
Like what?
Spending time with people you actually like, hobbies, going for walks, all that good stuff.
So easy to forget about those things when you're like glued to your phone.
It's like that saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. But the truth is, the grass is greenest where you water it. And
Yeah.
that means putting time and energy into things that really matter.
Wow, that's deep. I love that. So online and offline, find that balance.
Right.
This has been a really fascinating dive so far. We've talked about like the addictive nature of social media, that whole illusion of perfection, and how important it is to use it mindfully. But there's still so much more to unpack, right?
Oh yeah, we're just getting started. In part 2, we'll be tackling social media and young people, the unique challenges they face. What can parents and caregivers do?
Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Hold on. We actually don't take breaks in these deep dives, you know that? We keep things moving for our listeners.
Oh, right. So stick with us. We're diving straight into part 2, exploring the world of social media through the eyes of young people.
Social media is a tough one for everyone, but especially for younger people.
Oh, totally. It's like they're already going through so much at that age.
Exactly. Think about it. All those emotions, trying to fit in, figuring out who they are.
And then you add social media to the mix.
It's like throwing gasoline on a fire.
Whoa, yeah, that's a good analogy.
The article points out how it can make things like anxiety and depression way worse for teens and kids.
Bullying too, right?
Oh, absolutely. And then there's the whole self-esteem thing.
It's brutal. So what can parents do? I mean, the article said just taking away their phones might not be the answer.
Yeah, it's not about just like cutting them off completely. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm.
Doesn't really solve the problem.
Right. You got to address the root of the issue. The article stresses that big time.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, it's asking those tough questions. Is it problems at school, social anxiety, maybe even stress at home?
So many things going on at that age.
Exactly. You got to figure out what's driving that unhealthy social media use.
Makes sense. But are there any like practical tips for making it safer for them online?
Definitely. The article talks about monitoring and setting limits on how much time they're spending on it.
Okay, so like parental controls and stuff.
Yep, things like that. You can use apps to set boundaries, like how much data they can use and when they can even access certain sites.
So it's like putting some guardrails up, keeping them from going too far down the rabbit hole.
Exactly. And then there's privacy settings.
Yeah.
Super important for protecting them from bullies, or even worse, predators.
Yeah, you hear some scary stories.
No kidding. You want to make their online world as safe as possible.
Makes sense.
Another big thing is social media breaks.
Like digital detox.
Sort of. No phones at the dinner table, no devices in the bedroom after a certain time, and plan some family activities that don't involve screens.
Oh, I love that. Creating that time to actually connect in real life.
Right. The article specifically mentions a digital curfew, turning off devices at least an hour before bed.
That ties into what we talked about earlier with the blue light, right? Messing up sleep.
Yep. And bad sleep leads to all sorts of problems, including mental health issues.
It's all connected.
It really is. And this is a big one. Parents need to talk to their kids about how social media can, like, twist reality.
No, yeah, all those filters and perfect pictures.
Exactly. It's so easy to forget that it's not real life. Kids need to know that what they're seeing online is often just a made-up version of the truth.
It sets them up for failure if they're comparing themselves to that.
Right. The article says parents should really emphasize that the number of followers or likes doesn't mean anything in the real world.
So true. But it can feel so important at that age.
Oh, I know. It's about shifting the focus from external validation to what really matters.
Internal stuff. Like who you are as a person.
Exactly. And finally, the article talks about encouraging them to get involved in things offline.
Things they're passionate about.
Yeah, like sports, hobbies, creative stuff, volunteering. Those activities build confidence and help them figure out who they are.
And it goes back to that cultivating offline joy thing we talked about, right?
Well,
Good for their mental health. Plus, it gives them a chance to connect with people in person.
win-win. Now, we spent a lot of time talking about the negatives of social media. But it's not all bad, right?
No, totally. Like you said earlier, it's a tool.
Right. It can be used in positive ways too.
So, in the last part of our deep dive, we're going to look at some tips for building a healthier relationship with social media, no matter how old you are.
Exactly. It's about taking control and making it work for you.
We'll be right back. Just kidding. We're diving straight in. Buckle up as we uncover some strategies for making social media work for you, not against you. All right, so we've covered the risks, especially for the younger crowd. But how about we switch gears and talk about how to actually make social media, a good thing in our lives?
It's all about taking charge, making smart choices.
Yeah.
Like we said before, social media is a tool, right?
Yeah.
It all depends on how you use it.
And the Help Guide article we've been talking about, it's got some good advice on making it work for us, not against us. They keep bringing up this idea of mindfulness.
Yeah, that mindful motivation thing. Before you even open that app, just take a sec. Ask yourself, why am I doing this?
Right, like what's the point?
Exactly. Are you looking for a genuine connection information? Or are you just, trying to avoid something else?
So first things first, figure out your why.
Yeah. And once you've got that down, you can start setting some boundaries. The article suggests actually scheduling specific times for social media, like maybe 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes at night. Avoid that constant checking all day long.
So it's like putting it on your calendar, like a meeting, but with yourself.
I like that.
Hmm.
It's about creating a structure. Another good one is disabling notifications.
Oh man, those notifications are the worst.
Right. All those pings and buzzes, they're like designed to keep you hooked. Remember that dopamine loop we talked about?
Yeah, it's like my phone's turned into a slot machine and I can't stop pulling the lever.
And those algorithms are meant to keep you playing. Turning off those notifications puts you back in the driver's seat. You decide when to engage, not the app.
It's like reclaiming your attention span, which, let's be honest, we could all use a little more of these days. Anything else we can do to be more intentional?
Be picky about who you follow and what you're looking at. If an account or type of content is making you feel bad, envious, or whatever, just unfollow or mute them. You have the power to create a positive online experience for yourself.
So it's like being the curator of your own personal museum, but it's your social media feed. You choose what goes in.
Exactly. Fill it with things that inspire you, make you think, or just make you happy. And speaking of happy, remember all that stuff we talked about? Cultivating offline activities.
Right. Hanging out with real people, doing hobbies, getting outside, those things.
Social media can be great for staying connected, but it can't replace actual experiences and real relationships. It's all about balance.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today. We explored those potential risks of social media, how it can affect our mental health, but we also found some practical ways to make it work for us.
It's about awareness, being intentional, and finding that sweet spot, that balance. When we understand how social media can be addictive and we take steps to manage how we use it, it becomes a tool that can actually help us.
So here's our final thought for you. If you could create your perfect relationship with social media, what would that look like? What boundaries would you set? What real-world experiences would be your priority? Take some time to think about those questions and then, actually do something about it. Make social media something that makes your life better.
You have the power to choose how you use it. Make sure it's something that empowers you, connects you with people, and makes your life richer, both on and offline.
And that's a wrap for our deep dive into social media and mental health. We hope you found it insightful and maybe even inspiring. Until next time, stay curious, stay mindful, and keep diving deep.